Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our Saturday morning on this rather fairly bright but very still morning. But we're hoping to take us to slightly warmer climes today, because I'm delighted to have Julian and Carol Sims here, who are going to spend some time reflecting on their trip to Santiago in di Compostela. We'll say more about that in just a moment or two, but welcome to you both. Nice to have you. And I gather your feet are recovering from the trip, which was probably, was it 3 weeks ago now? I can't remember.
No, two. I think we got back two weeks ago today.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so you left
So
3
we were
weeks ago.
halfway. Yeah, we were in the air somewhere between Santiago and Stansted this time.
Right.
No, we weren't. We were on our way to Santiago Airport.
On the way to the airport. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, how did you get involved in going on this walk?
Shall I start? I'd seen. Well, you would remember Pip Martin, wouldn't you? Who was vicar of St James's at Alderholt.
Yeah, I meet him regularly. Mm.
Yes, he did. I think a number of sections of it, somewhere between sort of 10 and 6 years ago. And I went to a talk that he gave at St James's Church over here, and that sort of provoked interest. And from that point onwards, it was something I was thinking, well, when's the opportunity going to come to actually do some after all? It never did for that 5 years, and then Tradecraft Exchange suddenly had something on their Facebook page saying they were planning a fundraising, which should have been March this year or October last year. October last year.
I think it was October last year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I saw that and I sort of jumped in and said, I want to do that. I'm going to register my name. And then Carol and I had a conversation.
Yeah, I never heard of it until Julian mentioned it to me. I said, yeah, I like walking. I can do that.
Yeah.
So instead of doing it on my own, it ended up with the two of us doing it together.
Which was great. You might just need to come slightly closer to the mic.
Okay.
I think we're both very quiet if you can. Tradecraft Exchange, people may not know very much about, because it's the sort of it's the hidden arm of Tradecraft, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Tradecraft we all see, and we see the fair trade mark in our supermarkets and things like that, sort of on products, and hopefully we're encouraged to buy them. But Tradecraft Exchange is the charity rather than trading arm of the organisation that does a lot of campaigning and providing financial support for different parts of the world where often where they're trading with as well. So it's a slightly different focus, but a very valuable focus as well.
And I think the profits from the trading are part of the support of the charity arm, aren't they?
They are. The profits from that go into Tradecraft Exchange, which, as well as other fundraising. Yeah. And some people may not know very much about the Camino. If you haven't seen the film called The Way, is it Martin Sheeran who's in it? Who is it? Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you've not seen The Way, that's a really good introduction to what it's all about. But can you just say a little bit about it and what it is?
Yes, it's, as probably most of us know, in the Middle Ages there were a lot of pilgrimages by members of, I was going to say, let's call it then the Western Church, because it wasn't particularly the Roman Catholic Church then, was it? It was the Western Church. And Santiago in northern Spain became one of the three major pilgrimage destinations. You had Jerusalem, Rome, and Santiago, where supposedly the remains of St James, son of Zebedee, are. I'm sure, like so many things from that long ago, we're not quite sure of the truth of any of the matters, but certainly tradition holds that his remains are there.
Yeah.
And it died. Sorry.
There was certainly trading across that route. St Paul wanted to go to Spain, didn't he? So it's not impossible that at some point the remains of James, he should either have been there or his remains taken there.
Well, the tradition is that he did preach there before going back to Jerusalem, where he was martyred. So, but as I say, like so many things, we hold the traditions, and how much we question their complete
Yeah.
truth is another matter.
Yeah. So there's a marvellous cathedral there, isn't there, which people aim for?
There is, yes. And history is the roots really came from throughout Europe, then died out at the Reformation and with all the European wars in the 15th and 16th, etc. centuries. And then it sort of restarted in the mid 80s as part of sort of a European idea of cultural exchange and communication.
Yeah.
It's sort of one of the things that the Council of Europe encouraged or locals encouraged with the support of the Council of Europe to just develop knowledge of each other within Europe.
Yeah. It's a little bit like sort of Tese, except it's Tese on the move. People meeting from all over the place, and there are lots of different routes. So you can set off from kind of anywhere, even northern. You can go from Canterbury actually, and go all the way down through France and all the rest of it. But I don't think you went quite that far.
We didn't know, and there is a traditional route for people from England and the UK that arrives on the northern coast by boat, effectively, and then walks from there. So really, it depends. Tradition is you start from home, and the whole of your journey is your Camino, your pilgrimage.
Yeah. And we do have in St Mary's Fording Bridge, we have got pilgrims graffiti, because they often used to score crosses in the wall before they set off on their journey. And we've got some medieval graffiti at Mary's.
And I have to say, pilgrims graffiti is still very much of a tradition. I haven't put one of the photos of it to show, but anybody that comes to our Bring and Share lunch tomorrow at Hyde and listens to our talk, they'll see a couple of examples of pilgrim graffiti, which can be quite light-hearted and entertaining.
They can, yeah. That's a good moment just to advertise that this is a sort of foretaste of a slightly longer session tomorrow. The service is at 10 o'clock at Hyde Church, communion, followed by 11 o'clock there'll be coffee, and then round about 11:30ish we usually start, don't we?
Yeah.
I knew Carol and Julian will be saying something, and then there's a shared lunch afterwards as well. So everyone's very welcome, and you can come and join at any point in all of that.
And also don't forget, you'll hear another voice as well as ours in Brian Allen, who about 3 weeks before us did a different route to Santiago. Yeah. So it's been a little bit of it's becoming common now for people from Hyde.
Yes. Yeah, it's a bit of a theme, isn't it? Yeah. And so you were walking. Forget where you set off from.
Yeah. Shall I sort of
show us the map? Yeah.
Yeah.
A moment of pause while there we go.
I hope you can see it. It shows all the various routes, a lot of the various routes. And if you look at I hope you can see the green route that starts at the Spanish-French border, where there's a little number 4. So we didn't start from there, but as you follow it through, you get to the word Lugo, which is one of the Spanish regions.
Oh yeah.
We started just below that at a city called Soria, which is about 117 kilometres from Santiago itself, which is a common starting point for people doing about a week's walking.
Yeah, for a week or so. Yeah. One of my dreams is to have a sabbatical and do it in about 3 months and start in the Pyrenees and walk along the top there.
Yeah.
Whether that will ever happen, who knows?
Whether you need 3 months, we did meet at Stansted on the way back. Immediately behind us in the passport queue was a chap who'd been away from his wife for 7 weeks, walking from Saint-Jean, just in France. So you only need 7 weeks, not 3.
Okay, so I needed 2 months then. Okay, that's even better.
And he was in his mid-70s. So.
Okay. Well, okay. That should be all right then. Did it feel different from just like going on a walking holiday, on a long walk?
It did, because it was so many days in a row. Did a long walk, maybe you do it at a weekend, you'd have a break, but because this was constant day after day, it did feel different.
And the other thing, to me, we were with a group that was about 20 of us. I think everyone, certainly within the group, less so perhaps with our group leader and whatever, but everybody was walking with a Christian faith. They came from different traditions. We started the day with a moment of prayer. we had a book of reflections that somebody had prepared for us. So there was something far more to it than just a walking weekend or walking week's holiday. And the destination, I suppose, is different. But that's always a question with a pilgrimage: is the purpose your destination, or the walk as you try to get there?
Well, I was just going to say it's exactly that. Whether it's the way that's more important than arriving at Santiago in a way.
Yeah.
But certainly, I mean, presumably then over that time you'd get to know other people quite well and probably having quite a lot of interesting conversations.
Yes, I think it was different walking as a couple to being on your own in the group. So I think there are slight differences, but you certainly got to know people. And, well, hopefully later next month we'll have a Saturday conversation interviewing two or three of our colleagues. So you
that's
might
right.
Hear about it.
That's another advert. That's the 19th of November, I think, isn't it? Or
20th, I think.
20th of November. Yeah.
Yeah.
When Julian's going to interview some of the other people on the walk.
But you certainly got to know them.
There was a good cross-section.
Yeah, and you got to know some more than others, depending on your walking speed and the like. You tended to be with. We had one lady that was galloping at the front all the time, so we didn't get much of a conversation with her. But those from halfway back and to the end, we sort of got to know reasonably well. Yeah,
it's probably quite a long time since you two have just had that amount of time together as well, isn't it?
Yes, without daughters in hand. Yeah,
yeah, that's quite good as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, how was it when you arrived in Santiago? What happens there?
I don't know what Carol thought.
I was quite emotional when I got to the square. Because it's like, we've actually got here. It's been a long walk, and we've got here. We've finally made it.
Yeah. I found the last 4 kilometres or whatever, 3 or 2.5 to 4 kilometres. A lot of it is just walking through 20th century city streets. The last little bit when you're into the old city and you're coming up to the cathedral is wonderful, but 2 kilometres of
hard on the feet to the end to end with.
Yes,
wandering through the back streets almost of.
I was going to say,
Santiago.
Think of walking through some parts of Southampton or Portsmouth or something like that.
Yeah.
The bit up to 4 kilometres away was wonderful. The last 2.5 was a real hard work. You get past the city side and you think we're nearly there, and then you've got 2.5 kilometres, it feels like, just walking past modern buildings on hard pavements, which is but that's me being
and then you got to worship in the cathedral, didn't you?
We did. I think we all concluded that we wanted what was the Thursday evening to relax. So we actually went in to the 7:30 service on the Friday, which gave us all time to collect our thoughts, be a bit more. So I guess if you were going in immediately after arriving, emotionally, it could be very different to going to the service 24 hours later. But it was wonderful.
Yeah.
So we don't have that problem in Avon Valley churches, do we?
One day. Yeah. Yes, having to queue to get in. That'd be the day. Yeah. And I think you've got some photographs, haven't you, to show us, so people get a sort of glimpse of what it was like.
Yeah, let me try and. Okay. So the first thing I was going to say is almost all the way, particularly on the route we were doing, which is the French way, you have these concrete waymarks, which I think were put in the 80s and 90s, which give you the distance. I hope you can see that's 106.296 kilometres left to go. Sometimes they can be really helpful because you feel the distance is going down.
Right.
Sometimes when you've walked and it's only gone down by 0.4 of a kilometre, it's a little bit less rewarding to see the next one. we've got other photos, but
Some
often,
of them are on walls of little farmyard buildings, so they weren't always in that format.
yeah. But a lot of people, as they walk, if they're walking in memory of somebody or with something they want to reflect on or whatever, you'll often find stones left on the top of these pillars and other things along the way. It's that sort of tradition of either marking it on behalf of somebody that you've lost or whatever, or laying down your burden. There's sort of, I think, different ideas in people's minds. That's back to the, I'll get to the right end of these. What we really did enjoy was sitting down for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Probably about every hour and a half to 2 hours. So probably walking speed is probably 4 mile slots, and then stop for coffee or lunch or whatever.
But then we found it hard to get going again. We stiffened that
Yeah.
back into the rhythm of it as well.
I think that was our first coffee stop on the first day, I think. Yeah. And then with some of the scenery, particularly on the first couple of days, you said going somewhere warmer. Well, the first couple of days, it wasn't particularly.
No, you've got
afternoon drizzle and things like that.
Oh gosh.
We saw quite a lot of this sort of scenery.
It reminded us a lot of home, really, some of the forests, because there was chestnuts on the ground with all the spiky bits. It's like home from home, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you often came across people on the side waiting. There's a guy, I don't know, can you see next to the tree on the right hand side? There's a guy playing a flute or penny whistle.
Oh yeah, I thought what he was doing, yes.
Yeah, we have got a video of him playing a little bit, which I haven't got up here. But you often had people, there were people who written short books about their walks with spots on the way selling. You had wood carvers at the side with carved pilgrim staves that were selling. So quite a lot of different things. Depending on the speed and the pressure you were under to get to your next stop, you sometimes had time to stop and look at them or talk to them. And sometimes you really felt under pressure to push on and keep going.
Right.
But that we saw quite a lot. And then we also had 1 or 2 really wonderful sunsets, sunrises.
Yeah.
That was sunrise just before we set out one day.
On our last day, I think.
I think it was. That was the Thursday morning before we set out. A couple of times we had, because there were 20 of us, our accommodation we stopped somewhere, then had a minibus to take us to the accommodation, and then take us back to the same stop to place to start. So that was a bar where we stopped one evening, got couriered to where we were staying, and then came back to that sunrise in the morning just before we headed off on the last trip to Santiago. That was the group in front of the cathedral.
Yeah.
I think everybody's somewhat relieved there. Can't see the state of everybody's feet. and then that was the inside of the cathedral. Unfortunately, we didn't all get a chance to go in. I think, what was it, about a dozen of us went into the service. The other 8 or so went out to Finisterre on the coast, and their trip didn't get back because of the queuing time. Didn't get back in time to get into the cathedral.
That was it.
So we didn't quite. I think that, as I say, there was 10 to a dozen of us.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry.
We nearly always see photographs of the cathedral from the transepts going across because of this very famous huge thurible that they've got swinging.
Yeah.
So it's surprisingly thin looking, narrow. The nave.
Yeah, I felt, knowing Salisbury and Winchester fairly well, it felt smaller.
Yeah.
As a cathedral, it felt smaller in the nave itself. Now there are side aisles to either side of that, which probably would have been about at that spacing 3 seats wide. But yeah, it didn't feel as big as either of our 2 local cathedrals. Yeah. In some ways, it felt more like the Priory at Christchurch.
Oh yes, yeah.
But of course, the Priory doesn't have all that gilt at the east end.
slightly more glamorous than Christchurch.
Yeah, and you can't see wonderfully here, but you've got the central
Yeah.
tower and the light. I don't know about other people, but I find that level of ornate ornamentation, I find it conflicting in mind.
Yes.
That amount of gold and everything, but it's certainly beautiful.
Yeah. I think that sort of Rococo style is not usually, it's very much the British taste. We've got used to something a little bit more restrained.
Yes, I think
than the continental Catholicism.
Yes, and you as a musician, you can probably see the organ with pipes on both sides.
Yeah.
The volume that comes out of that when it's played in that space is huge. Yeah.
Good place for the organ there.
Yes, I don't know where the keyboard is, where the organist would be sitting. We didn't actually spot. Yeah, we didn't spot that.
No, he could well be up there on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, we do have a video of the censer being swung.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Yes, so
we didn't think we'd see it. I think we only do it on special holy days.
Yes.
But it was like the icing on the cake to come all that way. See that.
Yeah. We haven't actually asked Brian whether he saw it as well when he got there, so we'll
right. I think there's just about room to put one in Hyde. I think it could be quite fun. Up and down the nave.
Be interesting what the tradition at Hyde felt to it. I think if it's been the 50s, it might have been appreciated more.
Yes.
I think that's the last one I've put into this.
That's great.
Yes.
And that's the map that we're seeing. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, that's been a really good introduction, and look forward to hearing more about it. I may get there tomorrow, depending on how the baptisms go at Hyde as well. But I think you've got a psalm to finish for us, haven't you?
Yes, I think so. I haven't actually got a picture of it, but as I say, we had a chap with us who's a minister of the Church of Scotland, so a minister of the Kirk, and he'd been on sabbatical just beforehand, and he spent part of his sabbatical writing a booklet.
Right.
Sorry, it's
right.
Reversed,
yeah.
With a daily reflection and the like. And what he took as his focus, one of the Psalms of Ascent, the Psalms that pilgrims going into Jerusalem in Jesus' time, or the Jewish pilgrims going to Jerusalem, we believe use Psalm 121 was what we were reflecting on. I think it was about one verse a day, sort of through the walk. Do you want me to read it? Yes. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore.
Amen. Thank you. It's a really lovely psalm. That one. We've got one. Pardon?
We certainly had some hills.
Yeah, I bet you did. Yes.
Undulations. Yes.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, thank you both for joining this morning. Thank you all those online who are joining with us as well. I hope you have a good rest of Saturday, and I'll see you at some point tomorrow.
Yes, and think of our baptism family as well that are going to be at Hyde tomorrow. So yes, it goes well with that.
Yes, that's going to be lovely. So a father and daughter.